So Ferraris and rock and roll fuel an unexpected mass crime spree, where things are not exactly as they appear to be, as I take an in-depth look at this 1987 sci-fi action thriller, The Hidden. A series of bizarre and inexplicable robberies and murders from seemingly ordinary people have LA Police Detective Tom Beck totally baffled. When peculiar FBI agent Lloyd Gulager shows up seeking a man that the LAPD just put in the hospital, something stranger occurs when an organism transfers itself from the perpetrator into another patient. Then the violence begins again along the same pattern, leaving Beck at constant odds with Gulager, who appears to know more than he's willing to divulge. The detective tries to decode what the federal agent is all about, learning that his partner, wife, and child were all killed by the criminal he's been hunting. Yet when the organism's host body severely deteriorates, it accosts a stripper named Brenda and begins to lay waste to everything in its path. When countless gunshots fail to bring it down, and her and Gulager have an unusual exchange, she throws herself off a rooftop regardless. Beck then has Gulager arrested and demands that he give him the cold, hard, unabridged truth about what exactly is going on. The reality is that neither Gulager nor the thing they are hunting are human, and this violent entity is invading the bodies of innocent victims to carry out its violent impulses. When Lieutenant Masterson nearly destroys the police station trying to kill the affronted FBI agent, Beck cannot deny the fact that he's dealing with the extraordinary, and he must join forces with Gulager to stop its reign of destruction, no matter what. So being released to theaters on the 20th of October in 1987, The Hidden came to us through a very interesting sort of development process through New Line Cinema. We're getting a lot of traction with their Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, having just released Dream Warriors that previous February. And the whole screenplay came to us through a guy named Jim Koff, who had just done the Richard Dreyfuss Emilio Estevez film Stakeout, and also worked on the script for the sequel to that, and also co-wrote the script of the very first Rush Hour film starring Chris Tucker and Jackie Chan. But he kind of developed this whole screenplay with the intention of really wanting to direct it, despite not really having any established experience in that field yet. And so as things negotiate with New Line Cinema and they kind of fall out with the idea of him directing it but still wanting to do the script, he kind of lost interest in it, and he actually is not credited with his actual name in the film. He used a pseudonym of Bob Hunt. So it's a very interesting type of thing where he kind of distanced himself when he really wasn't interested in being involved with it. And also the fact that they brought on director Jack Sholder, who had done so much with New Line Cinema at this point in time. There was a very long history with him. He had cut trailers for them back in the day when they were just a distributor. He was the one who directed their very first in-house production of Alone in the Dark, this 1981 horror film. Obviously did a Nightmare on Elm Street 2 Freddy's Revenge, which did get good money at the box office despite getting a lot of critical backlash on it. But he was a very solid hand, a guy that you very much trusted, and he very much was appealing to this script and everything. He really wanted to work with it and really wanted to kind of rewrite a few elements, kind of accentuate some other elements in the entire story to make it much more appealing to him, much stronger type of thing towards him. So you can kind of see how Jim Koff kind of decided, I'll just use a pseudonym. I'm not all that interested in being involved with it that much more and not being able to direct it. And then Sholder wanted to do a little bit more reworking on the script to kind of just accentuate different things, especially make it more of an action film, where the film actually grows about $9.7 million at the box office, but there's no actual documented budget for the film, so there's no way to really tell exactly how much of a success it actually was. But by the fact that they put on an initial VHS and Laserdisc release in 1988, and then in 1994 put out a special edition Laserdisc with a new commentary track and behind-the-scenes stuff and script excerpts and a whole bunch of stuff, they really saw that this was a very strong cult title, so one way or another this film was making money for them over a long course of time. And it's so interesting looking at the film. It's like, however much money they spent on it, which maybe you'll guesstimate somewhere around $5 to $7 million maybe, they're probably putting about $10 to $11 million on their Elm Street film, so maybe somewhere in that range, but to see how much they got done on this film on such a high end with probably limited resources, Jack Sholder puts together a hell of a picture here. He puts together something that just feels a lot more high end than it probably would have been under someone else's direction, or looking at the cost they probably put into this whole thing. He puts a lot of stuff into this thing, just makes it look like a high budget type of action film. All these different things he puts together in the whole film just has a very slick, sharp type of way of cutting together the action in this whole film. Just like, it looks like car chase right at the beginning of the film. It just looks like anything you would have seen in a Lethal Weapon film or whatever the heck else was going on at the time. Just like, it looks high budget, looks slick, it looks so goddamn good. They got these Ferraris in the film. They can obviously afford the Ferrari, they can afford the Porsche, and for a lot of things on the film. So there's a lot of money put into it regardless of how much they spent. But the money's on screen with this movie, absolutely, positively. How Jack Sholder puts all this stuff together and demanded certain things to make sure they had certain things in the film to work for the story that they wanted to tell, and all these different elements of the film they really wanted to just punch up on the whole goddamn story. It all comes through very well, just like he just directs everything very well. Even that opening action sequence with the car chase, he says on his commentary that like some of it was the second unit, but there was some stuff he specifically wanted to be present for to direct himself. He wanted to be there to make sure it was shot the way he wanted it shot, and all these different things. Just like they use so much good stuff on this thing to really make a very fantastic quality of action sequences of this whole thing. Just like they look marvelous. They look as good as anything else going on in the 80s in this type of way. It's just really damn good stuff. Jack Sholder puts all that stuff together on the action level so goddamn well. It's all slick and just really fantastically put together. And he also brought in the cinematography he worked with on Freddy's Revenge, Jacques Haken, who also shot the first Elm Street, and actually would go on to shoot Shocker for Wes Craven again. So this guy's good. Jacques Haken is good, and it's like kind of weird where today he works like second unit DP. He shoots all the stuff for like Fast and Furious movies and Marvel movies, stuff like that, but he shoots the second unit. He's never the primary DP these days. But the quality he was putting together with these films in the 80s, the guy was a high-quality cinematographer in my regard. In my opinion, the guy did some fantastic work just getting all this stuff shot so beautifully in this whole film, where they had this very particular way, the color scheme of the film was very particular, because Jack Sholder didn't want to have any blues in the film. He wanted to kind of like zap all that stuff out of the whole film. All the production design, all the stuff going on with the lighting, all these different things. He wanted to have sort of green, because he felt like green was a little bit unsettling. It wouldn't allow you to get kind of comfortable in the entire thing, just like they would have some sort of neurological, psychological reaction just having all this green in the film, just feel a little bit uneasy. And I think that really works. I think it's a very smart type of thing to go for that, just like very particular when a director goes for a particular color scheme to elicit a certain emotion, a certain feeling from the audience, a certain atmosphere of some sort, to just have that permeate as almost a subtle, subversive type of thing with the audience there, and work it into the story to make sure that the film just has a certain look to it. And Jacques definitely helps out on that whole thing, shooting and lighting the film in such an interesting type of way. It's like there's so many little smart angles that just like it shows production value of how he shoots the film. Instead of like a lot of flat, uninteresting shots, they kind of get really good shots in different places and just block certain things out in a very smart fashion. Just like you can see these guys know exactly what they're doing. They're very talented at what they do, and just know how to get all these shots looking really damn good, really high quality production value. Just certain camera movements and stuff like that really make the film feel like it has emotion, has an energy in it, and the tone of the whole film really just works so well with how the film is shot and how it moves. The tight pace, the editing is fantastic in this whole thing. Everything just cuts together very well in this whole film. Just like everything is very smartly constructed from one shot to the next, and one scene to the next. There's very good transitions used. It's a very well put together film. If everyone kind of all gets wrapped up with the Freddy's Revenge thing about Jack Sholder, we've definitely done that a lot on this channel, but you watch what he does here, and he does a very fantastic job to show what he can do on this type of level here. He delivers so much good stuff, and just like all let's say about together with the cast of this film is very interesting, because I love Michael Nouri. Michael Nouri is such a great goddamn actor, but apparently had a lot of conflicts with Jack Sholder. There were a lot of arguments and stuff. They would stall out shooting for like an hour just trying to negotiate and trying to argue out a certain setup for a scene or something like that. certain motivations or certain ways that Nouri wanted to have the character of Thomas Beck portrayed or shown in the whole film. It was very combative between him and Sholder, but Nouri just has so much swagger on screen. He's so exceptionally charismatic. You just see how he just snaps into all these different scenes and how he just moves through everything. He just has a very authentic feel as an LA cop. If you think about it, like what a cop would be on film, he's exactly what you'd expect. Exactly what it is. He's sharp. He's right on top of every single moment in time that he's working the case and all these different things. He has this great combative nature where he's always trying to figure out exactly what's going on by chipping away at, kind of nailing it away at the character of Gulager there and all these different things. It's like he's such a goddamn presence in this film. He's such a driving force. Because you've got such a great dynamic there between Nouri and MacLaughlin. They have very different personalities of what they're portraying on screen. So you have one that's very forceful and very assertive and very aggressive and stuff like that. Just this guy, Beck, who just like doesn't understand what's going on. Everything seems very strange. Nothing that Gulager tells him makes any sense, but then he gets proven that it actually is what's going on here, but none of it really kind of connects. So it's like he's constantly trying to force the pieces together, and Gallagher's the only one who can give him the answer. So it's like, I love that combative nature, that combative nature that Sholder and Nouri have kind of somehow, almost translates in a certain way towards the characters of Beck and Gulager on screen here in a certain fashion, but he's so goddamn good on screen. Every time he steps in front of the screen, I just love watching this guy on film. Everything he does is so good, and just like, I love so much that something that Jack Sholder actually did add into the script, because he wanted to find a way to kind of warm up the character of Beck. He wanted to find something a little bit more of a strong bond to put between him and his wife in the film. And he created this whole the daughter that they have between them, and just creates this wonderful warmth about the character. It shows much more of the richness and the depth of the character to have that element added into the entire makeup of the movie here. To have the kid and have the wife and the whole family there, it deepens and enriches his entire character throughout the entire goddamn story. It just adds so much more to it throughout the entire course of the movie, especially when you get to the end of the film. It creates a great dynamic for him to work off of. And Nouri is just great. He's great throughout the entire goddamn film. He's excellent in this whole goddamn movie. But almost the real prize in this whole thing is MacLaughlin as Gulager here, Lord Gulager, because he's just so rich with subtlety in this whole film. And this is a couple years before his breakout hit with Twin Peaks as Agent Dale Cooper. A little bit after what he did with Dune and stuff like that. So it's a very interesting time in the midst of his filmography to really hit this very interesting characters. Like he's kind of almost a polar opposite to Beck. Beck is forceful, he's verbose in a certain way, he's very snappy and swagger, all that type of stuff. And Lloyd is just so much more subdued with everything he does. MacLaughlin, he's just a master class of just subtle acting in this whole film. You can just see the little things change on his face in certain places when he's there in the room with the daughter of Beck and everything like that, and having this sort of thing between him and her, where apparently Jack Shore said the daughter can see what Gulager really is. He's not like a regular person. She can see something different about him. So there's this sort of interesting connection that kind of spark off in that moment, and you just see how MacLaughlin's face changes so much in that whole scene. Just like, it's wonderful. And just like how he has this sort of just this very altruistic sensibility, just this benign creature in a certain way. It's like, despite the fact that there's a character going out for revenge in a certain way to hunt down the thing that killed his partner and his wife and his kid and all this different stuff, he's never angry. He's never vindictive. He's not like a regular out for revenge character. He's very much a guy who's much more about the compassion. He's much more about stopping this thing from doing any more damage, from taking away from other people what was taken from him. He's much more about that instead of bloodlust, stuff like that. He's much more about the compassionate, altruistic, sort of, as you would say, the humanity of the whole thing, where you got all this wonderful stuff of how, as you come to understand, it's all about aliens inhabiting other bodies to kind of either cause havoc or chase down the thing that is causing the havoc. The entire exploration of humanity and how he comes to try to understand humanity more and try to adapt into that, acclimate into that type of way. You just see so much going on with MacLaughlin stuff. He's got these funny moments where he doesn't quite understand certain little concepts here and there, where it's just a certain figure of speech or the certain thing with the Alka-Seltzer and then the aspirin later on. It's very funny stuff. It's very good stuff. Just like it's very, very sharp, smart writing in this whole film. The dialogue is fantastic, and all these actors really nail the hell out of it. But MacLaughlin just hits off so many good things, just showing the development, the evolution of the character, how he just moves through this entire thing, where he's a little bit kind of sly, a little bit funny or whatnot early on, where he's kind of dealing with Beck and being a little coy about certain things, but we get those moments where he can kind of emote a little bit and have a little bit of a depth to him here and there, just like he just brings it out in such a beautiful fashion. It's just an inspired choice to get Kyle MacLaughlin this whole thing, where he does such a fantastic job of this character. Just the performance is wonderful overall. All the subtlety, all the different qualities that he melds into the whole thing, where he's starting to become a little bit more trusting of Beck and trying to tell him exactly what's going on. Just like the building trust between Beck and Gulager is a wonderful thing to see how that progresses. First, again, they're argumentative and they're all not on the same page because Gulager can't really tell him exactly what's going on because Beck wouldn't understand it or he wouldn't believe it. But it takes going through all these events in the film where things become far more extraordinary and far less explainable by conventional means that Beck eventually comes into that grace and comes into that trust and all the different things. And just like so much, they have the entire scene where after the entire blowout of the prison, they have this little scene where they start walking side by side, where there's always been a little off kilter or whatnot in the entire film. Always be like Gulager trying to lead him away and trying to take control of things. Now they're linked side by side in this together, regardless of anything else. It's a wonderful type of thing. And they just got a great supporting cast in this whole film because love Richard Brooks. He's a wonderful, charismatic actor. Despite the fact that he's playing a character named Sanchez, which is like a Spanish-Portuguese name for an African-American actor. But he kills it in this whole film. He kills it again in Shakedown the year after this with Pierre Weller and Sam Elliott. He was wonderful in the first 3 seasons of Law & Order as Paul Robinette. He'd be in Crow's City of Angels, a whole bunch of really good films after that, and television as well. Great actor. Get a little bit of clue. Gulager coming back in from Freddy's Revenge as the sort of captain at the police station. Edo Ross getting in there as the partner of Beck. He's a great actor as well. Chris Mulkey, who would end up, again, working with Kyle MacLaughlin on Twin Peaks years later. And you got all this stuff with William Boyett and Claudia Christian. All these people are wonderful actors who really do great work in this whole film. Just like, I love so much that the actors, each one of them that have to inhabit this villainous creature. One that keeps taking over everyone's bodies and jumping from one body to the next. There's such a specific way to make sure that there was a consistency between each one, that they all had a similar body language, certain similar traits. They had to portray basically the same character, just in a different body. I just like so much that Jack Sholder probably put in a lot of effort to make sure that each one of the actors knew how they kind of came together, with a few little minor variations here and there. But it all came out such a great way, just like so much the sort of little tongue bit. All these different things, even with the freaking dog in this thing. They got the tongue bit, and the dog is fantastic. He's perfect. But all the little things they put together with the whole thing, just like, it's wonderful seeing this whole thing just wreaking havoc. Just like, it's such a great sort of dynamic here between the two different alien species here, between the one that Kyle MacLaughlin portrays and all these other characters portray the much more villainous type of one, as you would say, or whatnot, the much more destructive one, because the one that's much more destructive kind of uses up its hosts. It kind of wrecks everything, kind of uses it as a parasite. It just sucks all the life out of everything, just runs rampant, destroys things, tears everything up. Just everything is just used as sort of a parasite to kind of just suck it all up and just kind of leave it in a waste. You got the character of Gulager there. He's much more of a person with a different type of physiology in certain ways. Like, it doesn't bleed out and stuff like that. It can still heal itself afterwards. Where the other ones, they get all shot up and they die and whatnot. So it's like, it's a very interesting type of thing where they just have their personalities kind of fit the different sort of traits that the alien species kind of has in their hosts. It's very interesting. We're getting MacLaughlin's character is much more altruistic. He's not there to destroy. He's very much there as a compassionate type of creature. So it's like, he doesn't destroy. He doesn't go out and wreck things. He's very much on that level, and that kind of reflects everything else that goes on with that. It's a very smart type of thing, and just like, again, all those actors going in and making sure they were very much in line with what Jack Sholder wanted the character portrayed as. Even seeing like Claudia Christian there, where she's gotta be in this really sexy outfit and all these different things. She doesn't go walking across the street swaggering her hips or anything like that. She's very rigid in how she moves, very cognizant of how she's moving on screen. Very smart type of stuff. Overall, she does a fantastic job too. All these characters, all these actors, really do a fantastic job. Everyone just nails everything across the board. Really wonderful. And like I said, the scripting of all the characters and all the dialogue, all this stuff is so goddamn good. It just has that rapport, the chemistry, all these different things. Obviously, part of that's also the actors working very well between each other, but it's just smart dialogue in so many places. It just comes together to create rich characters you can invest in, be interested in, and just move the entire story along in a very entertaining and engaging fashion. Just nailed it so much between the script and the casting of the film. Wonderful stuff. But of course, you really couldn't have a really good sci-fi movie with a little tinge of horror in there without having some fantastic effects. And Kevin Yeager, another guy brought over from Freddy's Revenge. This is one of the best guys in the business. This guy would do such phenomenal work. So much stuff I can't even list it here, but he worked on Child's Play, creating the Chucky doll. Amazing work. This guy, top to bottom, inside and out, has done wonderful stuff. And he continued to do that here with just this ghastly looking, tentacled, slithering freaking creature. Just how this thing pours out of Chris Mulkey's mouth and into William Boyett with this fantastic type of thing. Just like, it's so slimy and creepy. And it looks fantastic. They actually did a little bit of stop motion animation work, which doesn't really show through at all in the whole film, because usually it would be a little bit choppy and jerky, stuff like that. I didn't see any of that at all in this whole film. It looked wonderful. It looked absolutely fantastic, like they did animatronics or something. But just like the whole thing, I don't know how this actually fits inside of a human being. It's so huge, but it's gross. There's all the little tentacles and all these different things pointing out, and all the subtle things later on where it's like hitting out of the character of Jonathan Miller, his shooting out of his forearm when his body's starting to break down, and all these different things, and the kind of patchy makeup they put on him. Wonderful stuff. And just like how this thing's got squibs aplenty in this whole film. The blood squibs are all over this film. They look absolutely gorgeous. We don't get these anymore. It's all kind of digital effects and stuff like that. When you head back in the day, the little explosive blood packets where they just shoot it out and all these different things, this film is packed full of them because you just keep shooting at this goddamn alien and they won't freaking die. And it's wonderful. Kevin Yeager just continues just like this track record of just amazing work in his career. Just hits it off and did a lot of interesting stuff and a lot of little tests here and there to do some a little more elaborate stuff here and there, especially at the climax of the film where the thing was going to pour out of the senator and then kind of grow up into this gigantic version of the creature, but didn't quite work out very well. And I think Jack Sholder also agrees, like, it worked out best where it didn't kind of just go over the top like that and turn into a major weird type of monster movie in that regard. I think they hit off the right beats in the dramatic sense of the film at that point in time. But something else that was altered for the end of the film was that originally it was a much more of a nihilistic type of ending where the alien actually gets away inside the body of the U.S. Senator who's going out for the presidency. So there's a much darker implication overall, and just like it just would have played into the complete opposite end of what Jack Sholder ended up with, what he decided to go with to tell the story he wanted for this film. Even the music in this whole film is very interesting. Just like I like so much the use of the percussive type of stuff and the kind of synth in there with a little bit of orchestra. Just the percussive beats in this whole film are so foreboding and so intense. They really get you kind of rattled here, and there's like gets the danger amplified in the whole film. Just like it works out so extremely well. Getting this score in this whole film, Michael Convertino just did a really solid job with this entire score, giving it a certain identity. It's not just kind of wallpaper type of action score, stuff like that. He did some particular type of things that really kind of make it stand out, be a little bit different and whatnot. It works out very well for the whole film. They give a little bit more of a mood in certain places where you need to amplify and punch things up a little bit and have a little bit of a different feel to it. So, nailed it so well. Just like everyone on this film just constantly nails it. The themes of the entire film, just like what Jack Sholder wanted to emphasize in the screenplay was, what does it mean to be human? And having all these different things where you got the evil creature and whatnot inhabiting the bodies and using them up and all these different things, It's just, this whole thing is like, it's consuming, it's being decadent, it's just grabbing everything it needs and just like stuffing its face or whatnot. All these things just like, it just consumes and kind of eats everything up around it. And just have all this stuff with Lloyd Gallagher. There's all the little things you see as he progresses through the story and starts to understand humanity and has lost his own family and looks at Beck's family. And all these little things just like, it starts to affect him in little bitty different ways. And just like, I like the reflection between the two different sides of this whole thing, where you have these very intentional moments of these two characters looking at themselves in the mirror, look at the host bodies and just touching their faces. They're very much kind of right back to back in the whole film, just like it tells you something visually while having to speak it to you, without having to explain things. It's telling you a visual story. It's explaining you how these characters react and what's very kind of alike about and what's not alike about them. It's very smart type of things overall that come together in a very well put together package. Again, the action sequences are fantastic. They're sharp, they're wonderful, excellent stuff, they're exhilarating, and the story behind it just adds a little something extra onto it. Just a little something extra, just like, it's not just there for the action, the blow-ups and the effects, stuff like that. It still maintains a little bit of that story in there. I just love all this stuff, just like it just has that ending that's very sort of interesting in certain ways. Like, it's unexpected to kind of have it not end on the action beat, but it ends on a much more of a heartwarming type of thing, where Beck's dying in the hospital at the gunshot wound, and Gallagher basically makes the sacrifice that he's going to abandon this body and he's going to assume the life of Thomas Beck and make sure that that family doesn't lose what he has lost. To have sort of their sort of collective sorrows and whatnot kind of galvanize into a single sort of family unit there in a certain way, to take what he's lost and kind of give it back to them. It's a very interesting type of thing to see how that's explored and how it's kind of integrated in the story between all the wonderful action beats and the interesting story they have with all the sci-fi elements. They still bring it down to a very human level to have a very kind of sentimental end to the whole film, which is, again, very unexpected, but it works so very well to make it a little bit better of a film overall, to have those extra added elements of emotion and depth and various other little things that just make it a little bit more heartwarming amidst all the big explosions, all these wonderful other exhilarating things. It's a very good film. It's a very smart film. It's very just entertaining and engaging and just unexpected. Again, just unexpected is such the word for it, because you just don't see a lot of these things coming out from just what you'd expect to be a fun sort of sci-fi smash 'em up type of thing and whatnot. It's very good. It's very good type of stuff. And they made a sequel. They made a goddamn sequel. I'm not watching this sequel. I'm not watching The Hidden 2. They put it out in 1993, which is very strange in a certain way. It's a fucking terrible movie. From every word I've heard from this movie, it's a fucking abomination. It's horrible. Like, the first third of the movie, first like maybe 20 minutes of the film, is recapping the end of the first film, just using all stock footage before they actually get into the actual news story they're going to tell, where they recast all the roles, because you're not getting MacLaughlin after he's just done Twin Peaks. He's too much for you. Nouri's not coming back. You're not dealing with him again. And so it's just the interesting type of thing where it's like, man, they promote this thing in kind of the most sleazy way possible, because they promote it so much. We're saying, oh, there's a special appearance by Michael Nouri. He's in this film. It's all stock footage. He didn't shoot anything new for this movie. The back cover of the freaking Japanese Laserdisc has MacLaughlin and Michael Nouri plastered prominently on it, like they're the stars of the sequel, when they shot nothing. They haven't shot anything for this movie. It's all stock footage, reused stuff. It's so shameless how they did that. And just like, again, all power to like someone like Kate Hodge, who was in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, who I think was really damn good in that film. Deserved a lot better than this, but goddamn, this whole film just apparently was just a terrible thing, and just really just lambasted by everyone who's ever seen it. And the strangest goddamn thing here is that, okay, it's 1993, they're releasing it, it's a sequel to The Hidden, but it basically just trashes everything it had in the first film. It's just terrible, just total disrespect. But you got Jason Goes to Hell coming out the exact same year, being released by New Line Cinema, which basically is the exact same body-hopping premise as The Hidden. Doesn't have anything to do with The Hidden. Doesn't really have a whole lot to do with the Friday the 13th series. But it kind of does that, and director Adam Marcus said he'd never seen The Hidden. He didn't know anything about the whole thing. I'm not accusing anyone, but it just seems very, very suspicious that, again, a film being released by New Line Cinema with a premise that has a link back to a film they made in '87, which they're just doing a sequel to now, just seems very strange. No one spoke up saying, hey, we already did this movie. This is very much a blatant ripoff, whether it's intentional or not. Seems very suspicious. The Hidden 2 is never going to be watched by me. It's never going to be seen on this channel again. I've heard every bad thing about it. You don't want to watch it. Don't bother with it. But The Hidden, absolutely watch that movie. If you haven't seen that movie, it's phenomenal. It's a wonderful film. It's excellent. I've just seen it for the first time this year, a couple months ago, and it was really good. I gotta cover this whole film. It's really damn good stuff. Obviously, I've said all the good things already, but I want you guys to say what you feel about this film, because there's a lot to talk about. I know it's just been a really strong cult hit over all these years. All this stuff. And just delve into it, guys. It's just there's a lot of stuff to get into this film. A lot of themes, a lot of interesting things. The performances, again, wonderful stuff. Production values. If anyone can figure out what the damn budget was on this film, please let me know. I'd like to know how much the thing cost to give it, how much of a praise it really kind of siphoned off from the production values they got of how much money New Line put into this. I really like to know. But guys, thanks so much for watching and engaging around here. There's always the Patreon if you're able to contribute to that, to keep things going up on this channel, keep going forward, and get a little early access to new stuff, the retro video series episodes, the commentary tracks, and also Forever Cinematic reviews. So guys, thanks so much. Hope you're well. Take care. Bye-bye.